What if the place they disappeared to was never meant to be found? That is the question that ignited a wave of fascination across the internet when reports surfaced that Lee Min-ho and Song Hye-kyo had been quietly captured on camera during what many now believe was a deeply private island escape following the birth of their child. Not a public vacation, not a scheduled appearance, but a hidden retreat, a moment carved out of their lives that was never meant to be seen. And yet, somehow it was. The footage, according to those who first described it, did not resemble the kind of celebrity sightings fans are used to. There were no staged poses, no perfectly timed smiles, no carefully curated moments designed for public consumption. Instead, what appeared on screen was something far more intimate. Real life. The video reportedly began with a wide, almost distant shot of a quiet shoreline. The sound of waves moved gently across the sand, the horizon stretching endlessly under a soft sky. It was the kind of place that seemed untouched by the noise of the outside world. And then, slowly, two figures came into view. Lee Min-ho and Song Hye-kyo, walking side by side, not as global icons, but as two people moving through a quiet moment together. What immediately struck viewers was the simplicity of the scene. There were no security teams surrounding them. No visible barriers separating them from the environment. Just open space. Freedom. And in that freedom, something about them felt different. Lighter. According to those who analyzed the footage, Song Hye-kyo appeared calm, her movements unhurried, her expression carrying a softness that many fans described as rare. Beside her, Lee Min-ho walked with a quiet attentiveness, occasionally glancing toward her, as if ensuring that she was comfortable, at ease, present in the moment. There were no words captured in the footage, but the silence spoke volumes. At one point, the video reportedly showed them pausing near the water. Song Hye-kyo looked out toward the horizon, the ocean reflecting the fading light of the day. Lee Min-ho stood slightly behind her, not leading, not pulling her forward, simply there. And then came the moment that would send waves of emotion across the internet. He reached out, gently, not dramatically, not for attention, but instinctively, his hand finding hers in a way that felt almost unconscious. A natural connection, a quiet reassurance. For many fans, that single moment became the heart of the entire story, because it was not about what they were doing, it was about how they were together. There was no performance. No awareness of being watched, just presence. As the footage continued to spread, discussions began to emerge about the timing of this private escape. Coming after the reported birth of their child, the island vacation took on a deeper meaning. This was not just a getaway. It was a pause, a moment to step away from everything that had defined their lives for so long. The constant attention, the expectations, the pressure. And to enter a space where none of that existed. For Song Hye-kyo, who had just gone through one of the most transformative experiences of her life, the need for such a space felt almost essential. A place to rest, to recover, to adjust to a new reality. And for Lee Min-ho, the decision to take her there spoke volumes, because it showed not just care, but understanding. An awareness that sometimes the greatest support is not found in words or gestures, but in creating an environment where someone can simply breathe. As more people watched the footage, another detail began to stand out. The way they moved around each other. There was a rhythm to it, unspoken, effortless. The kind of rhythm that only develops when two people are deeply in sync. It was in the small things. The way Lee Min-ho adjusted his pace to match hers. The way Song Hye-kyo leaned slightly toward him during moments of stillness. The subtle exchanges that required no explanation. For fans who had followed their journey from the beginning, this moment felt like a culmination, a glimpse into what their relationship had become away from the public eye. Not defined by headlines, but by connection. Yet alongside the admiration, a quieter conversation began to unfold. Questions about how the footage had been captured, how a moment so private had found its way into the public domain. Because while the video offered a beautiful glimpse into their lives, it also represented something more complicated. A breach. A crossing of a boundary that had been carefully maintained. And that tension added a layer of reflection to the story. Fans found themselves torn between appreciation and concern, moved by what they saw, but aware that they were witnessing something that had never been meant for them. In the end, the island remained what it had always been. A place of escape, a place of quiet, a place where, for a brief moment, two people could step away from the world that constantly watched them. Even if, this time, the world found a way to look in. And perhaps that is what made this story so powerful. Not the fact that they were seen, but the reminder that even in the most private corners of their lives, what they share is not performance. It is real, a connection that exists whether anyone is watching or not. And for one fleeting moment, the world caught a glimpse of it, only to realize that some of the most meaningful stories are the ones that were never meant to be told. And yet, what the world saw in that brief, unguarded footage was only a fragment of a much deeper story. Because beyond the shoreline, beyond the quiet walks and the gentle rhythm of the waves, there existed moments no camera could fully capture. Moments that defined what that island truly meant to Lee Min-ho and Song Hye-kyo. According to those familiar with the setting, the island was not chosen for its beauty alone. It was chosen for its silence. A silence that allowed time to stretch, to slow down, to become something they could finally hold on to. In the days following the now viral footage, reports suggested that their routine on the island was almost deliberately simple. Mornings began without urgency. No alarms. No schedules waiting to be followed. Just the natural light of the sun rising over the horizon, gradually filling the space around them. Song Hye-kyo was said to spend those early hours in stillness, sometimes sitting near open windows, sometimes walking slowly along the edge of the water. There was no rush to do anything, because for the first time in a long time, there was nothing demanding her attention. And nearby, often just within reach, was Lee Min-ho, not interrupting, not directing, simply present. It was in those quiet mornings that the weight of everything they had experienced seemed to settle into something softer. The intensity of public life, the emotional journey of welcoming a child, the constant pressure of being seen. All of it, for a brief moment, felt distant, replaced by something far more grounding. Stillness. Afternoons carried a different energy. The island, though private, was alive with subtle details. The movement of the wind through trees, the distant sound of waves shifting with the tide, the quiet rhythm of a world that existed entirely separate from the one they had left behind. They spent time walking, sometimes speaking, sometimes not. And in those shared silences, their connection seemed to deepen in ways that did not require explanation. Observers later noted that there was a noticeable shift in Song Hye-kyo's presence. A lightness. A sense of calm that had not been visible in previous public appearances. It was not dramatic. It was not something that could be captured in a single moment, but it was there. Subtle. Steady. Real. And at the center of that shift was something equally important. Support. Lee Min-ho's presence during this time was described not through grand gestures, but through consistency. The way he remained attentive without being overwhelming. The way he anticipated her needs without needing to be told. The way he created space for her to simply exist without expectation. One evening, as the sun disappeared beneath the horizon and the sky faded into deep shades of blue, a moment unfolded that would later be described as the emotional core of their time on the island. They sat together in silence. The kind of silence that no longer felt empty. The kind that carried meaning. And in that stillness, Song Hye-kyo reportedly spoke about something she had been holding quietly. She spoke about how much her life had changed. How the experience of becoming a mother had reshaped her understanding of everything. Of time. Of priorities. Of love. Her words were not loud. They did not need to be. Because Lee Min-ho listened the way he always had. Completely. Without interruption. And when she finished, he did not respond immediately. Instead, he allowed the silence to remain, as if giving her words the space they deserved. Then, quietly, he reminded her of something simple. That she did not have to carry everything alone. That whatever this new chapter demanded, they would face it together. For those who later reflected on that moment, it became clear that this was what the island had truly given them. Not escape, but clarity. A space where they could reconnect not only with each other, but with themselves. A place where the noise of the world could no longer define their reality. As the days passed, the idea of returning to their public lives began to take shape. Schedules would resume. Appearances would be made. The world would once again begin watching their every move. But something had changed. Something that would remain with them long after they left the island behind. A sense of balance. An understanding that even in the midst of constant attention, there could exist moments of quiet. Moments of truth. Moments that belonged only to them. When they eventually departed, there were no public announcements. No statements. No confirmation of what had taken place. Only the fading memory of a video that had captured a glimpse of something real. And perhaps that is what made the story endure. Because it was never about the footage itself. It was about what it revealed. That behind the headlines, behind the speculation, behind the constant observation, there exists a private world where life unfolds in its simplest form. Where love is not performed. Where connection is not staged. Where two people can stand side by side, not as figures the world watches, but as individuals finding their way through something deeply human. And for a brief moment, on a quiet island far from everything else, that world became visible. Only long enough to remind everyone that the most meaningful stories are often the ones that happen when no one is supposed to be watching.